railroaded. One of them is my sister, as a matter of fact. You know what I'm saying? Safia LaRoche. You know, she made these accusations as well. You know what I'm saying? Against Dr. Malachi York. Not only did I testify against her accusation, but also her mother testified against her accusations. You know, and I spoke with her best friend at the time, who told me that she felt bad about saying these things. But later, you know, like I said, she's the type of person who is easily influenced.
I mean, it was so bad when we were sitting and we were watching the trial was closed to the public. It was only, in terms of sitting in the actual gallery of the court, you could only watch from closed circuit television. We sat up there and saw.
So he had no support.
Yeah, he had no support. And you see government witness after witness. These didn't even keep their story straight. I mean, they were clearly lying, clearly making up, can't remember the locations, dates, places. I mean, they couldn't even remember statements they had made to the FBI about this whole case. They were clearly lying. I mean, to sit there and watch it, that's why they wanted the courtroom closed. They don't want people to see the nonsense and the ridiculousness that they put up. It was a kangaroo court. The people were clearly lying. They couldn't keep things straight. I mean, it was really ridiculous to watch.
Salha Eddington, who is my cousin, you know what I'm saying, was, after being abducted by defects, was taken into the custody of her father, you know, who also testified against Malachi York, who influenced her to testify against Malachi York, because before that she used to communicate with me a lot. She used to call me at my house, and she used to let me know what was going on in there and how they treated her. You know what I'm saying? And then one day, I got a call thinking it was her. And it was the father on the line. And he said, you can't talk to her anymore. And that was the last time I spoke to her. At that time, the next time I saw her was in Brunswick, Georgia, when she testified against Malachi York. You know, so they got to her eventually. So this whole thing was plotted and coerced by people who were disgruntled, and they were tools used.
So it's so many instances of where you saw the judicial bias from Judge Royal constantly blocking Attorney Patrick. Everything he puts up is denied, overruled. I mean, it was clearly, he's pointing out evidence that the prosecution needs to mention in the case. Why didn't you mention this? How can a judge sit there and coach the prosecution from the bench? And these are things that were happening throughout the trial that people don't know about, because subsequently the transcripts were sealed. So people couldn't even find out what actually happened. After the prosecution has maybe a week and a half of putting up witnesses, the judge rushes Attorney Patrick's witnesses, saying that they're repetitive and we don't have time, after it's been a week and a half of the prosecution witnesses. But now, oh no, we don't have time, too many of your witnesses are repetitive. So he showed a clear biasness against Dr. York. But despite that, Attorney Patrick still put on witness after witness of people who could attest to Dr. York's character, who could attest that none of this happened. All these so-called alleged victims who got up there and said, this did not happen to me. We even had Issa Johnson, who's supposedly supposed to testify on behalf of the prosecution, get up there and say nothing happened. So all these people who are in the indictment are saying nothing happened. How are they getting guilty counts of getting guilty on counts pertaining to people who were there who said nothing happened? They said it didn't happen. So why are you getting a guilty verdict on people who said this didn't happen to me?
I went to the trial and I seen it. They never produced any evidence. Don't believe me? Check it out. You will find out there isn't a shred of physical evidence against Dr. Malachi Z. York to this day. Not a doctor's examination, not a picture of the act, not any videotapes of the act, not any DNA samples that were used or presented as evidence during trial. Nothing. Not even a testimony that he did it but destroyed the sheets every time or something. Nothing. Nothing. Judge C. Ashley Royal stood up, recharged the jury, and sent them back in to deliberate. So this jury was never presented any sound evidence that proved that Dr. Malachi York was a criminal, and that the Nuwaubian organization is a corrupt organization dubbed a criminal enterprise that warranted the RICO charge.
Miraculously, because of the help of people who did research, who worked on the case, Attorney Patrick still won the case. He won the trial in terms of presenting the facts of the case. It got pulled off because of the work of members of the organization, people who have been researching, pulled it off. But to be placed in that position legally, he was automatically placed at a disadvantage that wasn't fair to Dr. York.
A young lady named Habiba Washington, who has a child with Dr. Malachi York, she became the star witness to corroborate all of the lies in this bogus indictment against Dr. York.
Everybody started venting in the car about different things that we didn't like. It didn't have nothing to do with child molestation, had nothing to do with any criminal acts. It was just different things that, you know, normal things that you don't like about growing up, or you know, we might have had an argument with Malachi here and there, and we brought up the situation. Jacob kind of fed off of that anger, and he convinced all of us that we should take that anger and we should go to the government with a story about his father.
And I implore everybody to go to he'sinnocent.com and look at the indictment, look at Habiba's involvement, things like that. And then the bombshell happens where the most powerful weapon the prosecution had recants her statement.
In terms of money structuring, which is one of the main counts against York, Habiba Washington testified repetitively. She was never given any instructions to structure money as the chief financer from York or anyone in the Nuwaubian community.
I told them about life in the community, growing up, why we left. I was questioned about the money charges, the money situation, because I did deal with the financial situation. I told them how we ran our finances. I ran off, different people that I knew that was there, different people that I knew that had left, and why they left.
Several times, she diligently and adamantly wanted to state to the world that everything I said during the trial against Dr. Malachi York was a lie.
The whole trial against Malachi was it was on personal anger reasons. We all had our own issues, why we were angry with him. And Jacob told us that we can come up with a story, we could eventually file for a class action lawsuit, we can all sue him for millions of dollars and get money from it. We can even go to making movies, we can even go to making books and stuff like that. So everybody fed off of that idea.
She laid out the conspiracy from beginning to end. How it was conceived by the son of Dr. York, known as Jacob York, or Yaqub Abdullah Muhammad by some who grew up with him. But, to the layman, it's Jacob York, the big guy in entertainment in Atlanta right now. Laid it out, made her study the Watergate Jew, made her study Jim Jones, made certain other of the alleged victims who we know are liars study these things so they can profile the Nuwaubians the same way they profile other extremist cults, so they can line it up. She lays the whole conspiracy out.
Prior to Jacob telling us about the civil suit, he showed us video documentary on Charles Manson, on the Watergate Jew, different leaders that kind of ran cults. And Jacob showed us this documentary. He showed it to me, he showed it to Nicole, he basically showed it to everybody that left the community, the girls. And he wanted us to look at this documentary and compare it to his father, the way that we lived. The fact that, yes, we did live